The idea that bigger is better in the heavyweight division is a notion that people have rightfully held for the past 15 to 20 years. We had Lennox Lewis, it went on to the Klitschko brothers, and today, still sitting at the top of the pile, you'd have to say, is the very large Tyson Fury. And so it seems that bigger and better are intrinsically linked in the heavyweight division, in boxing evolution. But then Oleksandr Usyk last Saturday just said, actually, it is not an absolute rule. If you have enough of the good stuff, being the key point here, you can implode those supposed advantages of the bigger man and show him to be a more basic, more lumbering, easier to hit target. It's why I've always been a big believer of the truly great heavyweights, going back to the smaller guys. Jack Johnson, not that he was that small actually, he had guns the size of Lennox Lewis, think about that. Jack Dempsey, Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano, even Joe Frazier, who's more modern. These exceptional talents had enough of the good stuff that bigger guys, once they start to get to 6'5", they start to lose, that they can come into the ring and use that as a distinct advantage. When Jack Dempsey fought Jess Willard in 1919, prior to ripping away his heavyweight title in the most brutal fashion, he apparently weighed bang on 180 pounds, barely over light heavyweight. But even in that seemingly diminished state, I have no doubt he was a particularly dangerous, unique cocktail of a fighter. Very smooth, quick footwork, even in the terrible film, go back and watch it, and had absolute hammers in each glove. That's not a joke about the supposed story of plaster of Paris in his gloves, which is a load of baloney. No, this guy could really hit, despite the fact he was about 6'1", and as I say, 180 pounds. But there's the difference. This guy had unbelievable, timeless talent. And with Joe Louis, his best weight was probably bang on 200 pounds. Not much bigger, about 6'2". But like Dempsey, he seemed to have an easier time with the bigger boys. Those amazingly quick and precise hands of his unbelievable combinations, they just opened up the bigger guys like no man's business. Buddy Bear, Max Bear, who was a big guy for the time and actually had an iron chin, was disposed in 4 rounds. Primo Carnera, some people make jokes about him, but he wasn't that bad, pieced up by Lewis in 6 rounds. When you have that kind of speed, that kind of precision, and you can land 3 shots in the time it takes a bigger man to think of throwing 1, you can cause real trouble. Now, when it comes to Rocky Marciano, at just 5'9", and often weighing in the mid-180s, he is the classic candidate to just dismiss when it comes to trying to think of his chances against bigger men. But understand this, his trainer Charlie Goldman insisted on The Rock to fight smaller, to make himself even more awkward, so that the naturally bigger man would actually have to lean over to try and engage him, and that's when he'd get an endless waterfall of hooks and uppercuts. Really awkward guy, Marciano. There's no way you can just dismiss him off those dimensions, even though they are incredibly small for today. Yeah, probably would fight at cruiserweight, but holy potatoes, the damage he would do in that weight class. And Smoking Joe Frazier, who was something of like Marciano's spiritual bigger black brother, you cannot tell me that he would not do some damage today. When you look at size, it's often equated with more strength, but Derek Chisora, who tries to do his best Joe Frazier impression, he's nowhere near as quick, and he's nowhere near as powerful. Yeah, that's right. Go watch Joe Frazier at his best, 1970-71, and the speed and velocity he got on his hooks, boy oh boy, they had a lot more whip on them than Chisora's kind of sometimes slappy punches by comparison. And if I had to just pick one of these older, smaller, though nonetheless great former heavyweight champions to defeat today's Oleksandr Usyk, it would have to be Smoking Joe, because he applied such incredible, consistent pressure. He was completely willing to get hit, to land his haymakers. He really was the anti-boxer device. I do find it interesting, though, having watched the Usyk-Joshua fight again, a bit more sober, I observed the fact some of the moves Usyk was putting in there, even though he is more of a pure boxer, he was stepping in and slipping a lot of the time, willing to get into that range before being quite aggressive himself. So essentially, he was incorporating some of the classic moves that you saw from a Dempsey, that you saw from a Frazier. Guys who you think have got nothing in common with Usyk, but actually, because Usyk's such an all-around fantastic fighter, there was an element of that incredible performance where he was channeling the great aggressive heavyweights. And with Usyk's incredible performance last Saturday, most importantly, it has slapped away that silly theory that's been hanging in the air like a bad smell for the past 15 years or so, that says the bigger you are, probably, the more competent you are in the ring. You are going to exert your power, your size, and the smaller man, regardless of how good he is not going to be able to do anything about it. No, it does come back to how good you are. There is no linear evolution in this sport which is purely linked to size. It has never fully existed, and we just saw the cracks in that theory again. Usyk was just that damn good.